All right, we're ready to rock and roll.
Yes, sir.
All right, the Board of Venture Technology meeting is convened at 9:11 a.m. on June 3rd, 2024. This meeting is being held in person and by MS Teams video conference and is being recorded. The recording will be posted to the internet for public viewing. The Health Licensing Office asks that individuals attending through MS Teams keep your phone muted and cameras off during the entire meeting until you're given an opportunity to comment during the public and interested parties feedback period if indicated on the agenda. Please do not use the chat feature during meetings. I will now call roll call. Todd Young here. Ron Ferris.
Here.
Grant Smith.
Here.
Chris Chapman.
Here.
Jennifer Ferguson. Yeah, here. Yeah, okay. It was just kind of quiet. Okay, good. All right, Bruce Schwant.
Here.
Perfect. Members, when you wish to speak, please state your last name for the record. Board members are asked not to use the chat feature during meetings. Public members wishing to speak must first sign in on the roster sheet available. For public members on MS Teams, please email Carrie Edwards at carrie.edwards@oha.oregon.gov and provide your first and last name. Public and interested parties' feedback may be heard during the public interested parties' feedback period if indicated on the agenda. Everyone is asked to use appropriate language, manners, and protocols when conducting board business. This meeting is called to order.
All right. Good morning, Chair Bob Bothwell with the Health Licensing Office. And good morning, all board members. The next on the list is approval of the agenda. If everybody's had an opportunity to read the agenda and to, I don't know who
Sorry.
did that, but.
This is Ron. It's on the items for board, the examination. It says 4th attempt, and then later on it says 5th attempt. The approval to take the written examination.
I don't see 5th attempt unless, yeah, I don't see 5th attempt.
Okay.
That's a typo. It should be
into it. In the response, dear Sammy, it refers to for a 5th attempt.
Yeah, it's
retaking
that.
the exam.
It's a typo on the agenda. It should be 5th attempt.
Okay.
Thanks.
So thanks, Ron. So Chair, we need a motion for one of the board members to make a motion to approve the agenda with the change.
So call for a motion to be made.
Somebody can make a motion.
Ron, I make the motion.
Can I get a second, please?
Yeah, this is Chris. I second.
And Chair, for clarification, that's with the amendment to the agenda.
It's for the amendment. So would you like Ron to actually state the motion? Is that what you're asking?
No, I think we clarified it.
Okay, great. Yep. Is there any further discussion? Okay, call the question. All those in favor? Ron?
Aye.
You want me to go through each individual person?
Please.
Yeah. Yep. Perfect. Yeah. So Ron?
Aye.
Grant Smith?
Aye.
Chris Chapman?
Aye.
Jennifer Ferguson?
Aye.
Okay. Bruce Schwant?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Jennifer, I'm not sure what's going on, but I'm hearing you very, very softly. Is that true for everyone, or is it just me?
Nope.
This
I'm
is
hearing
Ron. I
soft
talk
too.
it very weak.
Okay.
I'll speak louder.
Okay.
All right.
Perfect.
Next,
Introductions.
yes, sir. Motion passes. Now we're on to introductions. And new board members. Good morning, Jennifer. And So Jennifer's new and Bruce is also new. Good morning. Jennifer, can you share a little bit about yourself with the board, and we'll have the board introduce themselves?
I am actually
Yeah, we can't hear you, Jennifer.
so weird. I wonder what's going on. Can you hear me better now?
No.
Not really.
Let me.
Might have to adjust that microphone setting.
Yeah. I will try and shout for a second, and then I'll get on there and do everything I can to figure it out. So I'm a mental health therapist by day. And let's see here. I don't know what you guys want to know about me. I've
Jennifer's
lived
the
in,
public member, right?
yeah, I'm the public
Okay.
member. Yep.
Whatever you want to share, Jennifer. No pressure.
Gosh, I don't know. There's not much to share. I'm just normal person in the community. So
Cool. Thank you. Bruce, want to tell us a little bit about yourself? And then we'll have the board members share.
Yeah, so Dr. Bruce Schwant, I've been a general dentist for 42 years. I've had 5 of my own dental practices. I've been the director of clinical training for a nationwide company. I'm currently starting up a practice in Eugene that specializes in implants and full mouth extractions and dentures, transitioning people from a failing dentition to a successful prosthesis. Anyways, that's kind of why I'm interested in this group, because I see a lot of changes coming down the pipe very quickly with dental technology, and positions are going to be opening up. What would I call it? Opportunities for new types of employees are opening up, and I'm curious how that will be implemented and in connection with the current idea of a denturist, which Oregon is somewhat unique in having. I've come from California. We don't have denturists in California. So that position is interesting to me. I've also done a fair amount of digital dentistry, and I've had experience working with a gentleman who was working with a group practice that did extractions and implants, and he made digital dentures for them following that. He was I believe, a licensed denturist. Anyways, that's kind of why I'm here.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah, this is Ron. Welcome. Sounds like a great fit.
Cool.
Chair, you want to kick it off
Sure.
with yourself?
I'm Todd Young, been a licensed denturist now for 23 or 24 years. Have 5 practices up and down the Willamette Valley, and also have I'm the director of education for the American Denturist College, and love serving the profession. Love working with the health licensing office, and yeah, that's about it.
Ron.
Yeah, I'm one of the few dinosaurs that are still left out here. It started in 1970 in the Navy and fell in love with the lab work, and that was way before denturists or hygienists were even invented. So I ran a laboratory until I went to the Oregon Denturist College, become a denturist. Haven't done any lab work for any dentists in over 38 years, and I don't miss it a bit. I love you guys. I appreciate teamwork. But yeah, I was one of the first chairmen of the board when we started back in the 90s and wrote a lot of OARs and state statutes and civil penalties. And it's just been a blessing, been one of my babies from the beginning. So I appreciate you guys inviting me back after all these years, a few years ago. So thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Grant.
Licensed denturist in Eugene. Started working in the lab in '79, kind of grew up with it, and had my own practice for over 20 years. And that's about it.
Thank you. Chris.
Yeah, this is Chris Chapman up here in Hood River, Oregon. Been licensed same amount of time as Todd there. We went through classes together. We were the first group to study distantly out of Canada through the IDEC program, and so that was a really great experience. Happy to be working in the profession as always. We've got 3 locations in this area, and in the last year and a half, 2 years, we've gone fully digital with all of our clinical, including all of our laboratory fabrication as well. So it's an exciting time to be a part of the profession, and look forward to what's to come.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Heather Fogelsong is a special guest with us today. If she will come on screen and introduce herself. Morning, Heather.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. My name is Heather Vogelsong, and I'm an attorney with the Oregon Department of Justice, and I provide services, advice, and assistance to HLO and all of its different boards and programs, and looking forward to working with you today.
Sammy?
Hi, my name is Sammy Patnode. I'm the policy analyst for this board. I've been with HLO 28 years, so longer than Todd's been licensed. What do you think about that? And I've worked with this board most of that time, and I'm welcome new board members. We're so grateful to have you and you spending your time doing this because it's important work, and I'm excited to hear all the new stuff. So.
Thank you, Sammy. Tina?
Good morning, everybody. I too have been here, it'll be 28 years, September. Me and Sammy have been here a long time together, and I have worked with Todd and Ron way back in the day of the practicals being held up at OHSU. So welcome new members. Glad to have you.
And everybody's heard from Carrie. If Carrie, do you have a camera to bring yourself on screen, Carrie?
I don't have a camera, actually. It's not hooked
Okay.
up. But Carrie Edwards, I am actually the qualification education specialist and filling in part of the role for the board specialist, but not for much longer.
Don't sound so excited.
I'll still be
And-
here, but
Yes.
that role is actually being filled. So you'll get information from somebody else going forward.
And chair and members of the board, I'm Bob Bothwell, and I'm currently the interim director here at the Health Licensing Office. I've been with the state 32 years and with HLO 12 of those years. Welcome, everybody.
Trampus.
Oh, is he on there? I didn't see him. Oh, there he is. Trampus.
Well,
Thanks,
hello,
Tina.
everybody. I'm Trampus Shuck. I'm the interim regulatory manager. I have not been with the agency as long as Tina or Sammy, but I've been with the office for 15 years. So I've been around a little while, and I've kind of been working with this board since the beginning as well. So welcome new members, and I'll probably be talking to you again at the regulatory report.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Chair, members of the board. Next item is item number 4. And I don't, was Sammy going to present this?
Yeah, it's me. Hello, it's Sammy for the record. I think this might be the first time we've ever done this in my 28 years here. So we had a her name, Rachel Clark, failed the written exam for the 4th time, and your rules say after the 4th time that they would need to request, how does it word it? Request to take the exam for a 5th time. So she has emailed and asked for that to happen. So our recommendation would be allow her to sit for that exam for the 5th time. And that's pretty much it.
So are we up for discussion or any questions? Ron, I do.
I have some questions too. That's Jennifer. Sorry.
Ron, go ahead.
Ron, okay. Yeah, I'm curious, with it's the ITC, then International Testing Service, that's been awarded that's doing the exams. I'm kind of curious, maybe some information of why there would be a fifth exam. What if we in committee, or we don't have to do it all today, but if we could look into it, what is the average number of taking the test? Do they usually pass it the second time? And then it's getting to be maybe the third or fourth time, and all of a sudden there's a fifth time. Maybe there's a track record there that we could do a little discovery and find out. Um, sure, and with and my other thought there was, it doesn't say on here what the pathway was for the education. Was the pathway the college degree, GPA, transferable credit avenue, or the career school avenue? Um, Not that it needs to make a difference, but it might be some consistency, or maybe some discovery there. That's all my points.
So this is Sammy. She went to American Denture College. Is that right? How I say it? And the exam is given by Universal Testing Service, not, I can't remember what you said, Ron, what you called
I've
it.
tried, yeah, I was trying, I think it's UTS, Universal
Yes.
Testing Services. what I meant
And
to say.
so they own that exam. So the board wouldn't, at least how HLO normally works, wouldn't, you know, I suppose we could request changes to the test, but it wouldn't be, it's not an HLO administered exam. It's administered offsite by a testing company. But we could look at statistics, which I
I know
believe
there's
are
a hand up, but
in,
I don't want to lose my quick thought that the United Testing Services was awarded that, not from this board. For some people, there's a lot of new names and stuff in here that weren't here. I think it was about 8 years ago or so that um, it was told to the insurance profession that the health licensing division was getting out of all testing. It was brought up at one of the insurance conventions. There were 65 of us out there, and it was brought up by a board member. It was Sean Murray, who we all well respect. He's just a very intelligent person involved in all facets. But anyway, she had addressed the organization of Ventura, saying that the health licensing division was getting out of all testing, and that it was necessary that we move the test from Oregon, and it was recommended that it be moved to national. So, not to bore you, but it's important for the ones that didn't know how UTS was invented. But so anyway, it was less than a year later, I was at a board meeting. I don't remember the date, but you guys can help me, because it was the very first board meeting at your new location. And I remember that because I was there for other continuing education hearings on some controversies, and Ken Kais was there about some stuff. Anyway, with that said, it was introduced at the new building, how wonderful that is, that we have all this great parking and extra bathrooms, and we have a lot of room for testing and so forth. And I brought that up, and I says, well, we were just told that that the health licensing division was getting out of testing. And I not challenged, but I asked Sean Murray at the meeting, I mean, you're getting out of all testing, the hairdressers and the tattoo artists and the midwives, and oh yeah, they're getting out of all testing. Well, at that meeting, the health division said no, that you guys, and you can look at that recording. They said, oh no, it's just that the insurance program is the only one that's releasing the testing. And I go, that's interesting how that happened. Well, this board says we're going to move the test to national, and the board approved that. That was like 8 years ago, which is fine. And we all thought that was well and good. But anyway, Todd could probably explain this better than me, but the test went to national, And National looked at it directly and says, hey, I think we got a little conflict here. I don't think the insurance should be teaching to insure us and legally, and they want to drop that thing like a hot potato. And so, what's wonderfully, the UTS was invented and said that, hey, we'll take the test. And so that's how that happened, and the way I recollect it. But and the test being owned by the Young brothers, and that's wonderful. We all thought that was great that they stepped up. So, but any review, I'm curious as we look into what the United Testing Services, or how to say it correctly, what else do they test and what else do they do? Is it specific and unique to the insurance only, or is it a something that should have a sunset review and find out how they're doing? Because we know, and the health division knows more than I do, that I know enough to get myself in trouble. But the test that was forwarded from the health division to National, and of course we know the names there, but the test since then has been totally rewritten and is not the same test that was moved from the health division to National. And so I think that it's a committee, it's a lot of discussion today. And thanks for shaking your head, Todd, because I mean to stand corrected. But that's where we want to find out. The health division's mission is what's to look out for the public, what's best for the public. The insurance board is to look out for the insurance and see what we can do. And we just want to have that, I hate that word transparency. We've heard it so much.
All of our job
I'll
is
take a
public
break now. I
safety.
open up to the first hand.
All right.
Okay, hey, hang on just a second now.
I think
All right, so
Jenny's had her hand up for a long, long time, Todd. I think she should be first. But you're the chairman, you call it.
yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and take a question from Jennifer, and then I've got a couple things to say, but before we move on. So go ahead, Jennifer.
Being new to the board, do you guys have, like, some people have learning disabilities, some people can't take a written test. And so I'm wondering if you have other ways of testing besides just the written. Can you sit with this person? Did they ask for specific,
Yeah. And I can speak to that. Yeah. I'm gonna read something real quick, just for the legal side of things. Okay. So I wish to publicly declare for the record that I'm part owner of the American Denturist College that offers a denturist diploma and bachelor's degree in denturism authorized by the Oregon Office for Degree Authorization. Although no one's required to attend my school, I may have the opportunity to financially benefit from a person who enrolls in our college. I also wish to state for the record that I'm part owner of a testing services company, Universal Testing Services, that offers written and practical examinations that some states, including Oregon, have recognized as a tool for licensure. Although no one is required to take this examination, I may have the opportunity to financially benefit from a person who takes our examinations. Okay, so that's out of the way. Let me address about 6 different points. I'm going to start with Jennifer's just because it's fresher in my head. Universal Testing Services does offer accommodations to test takers that have demonstrated learning disabilities, including more time and or a person to read those questions to them. That is the limitations of that test. Okay, does that answer your question, Jennifer?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that that was held for this person. And if she did not take us up on it, it would be nice to know. But I don't know legally if we can.
So I want to be a little bit careful. I'm going to defer to staff for a quick question on this. So we're discussing a specific candidate, and I'm not sure that it should be in the public forum versus executive session.
We're not in executive session. This is
I know
Sandy.
that. I know
Okay.
that. But I just, if we're talking about potential learning disabilities or other things, I don't know that it's fair to be in public session on that. Am I wrong?
I don't think it fits into the executive session.
Okay.
Obviously you can just, if you ask the question and then we can look. I don't know that we get on the practical and written transcript if the accommodation, if there was an accommodation.
We do not
But
provide that. We do
I
not
didn't think
provide
so.
that on the testing
I
score. No.
I guess
So-
what I'm curious about is she's done this 4 other times. What do we know about this candidate that makes us want to go, okay, yeah, sure, let's give her a 5th chance? Because that's a lot of times. And if you don't get it by then, is there
So,
something else going on?
Yeah, let me, okay, so I'm gonna circle back to that. I want to talk about a couple of things. Give me just a second, Ron. So the genesis of Universal Testing Service, Ron, is correct in that the National Denturists Association worked with the state of Oregon and took over the written and practical examination. They did offer a practical examination and several written examinations that were conducted, and then at that point decided not to continue to do that. At that point, Universal Testing Services was formed to take the written questions that were provided by the state of Oregon. They are a homogeneous set of questions that exist, that are the exact questions that existed 8 years ago or prior to that that this board actually produced. They do not. They live on a separate server from the school. So and those questions are have been vetted by an education professional to ensure that current best practices are being used with the structure and function of the test questions. That was required by the state of Maine before it was approved there. So just so that you understand, Ron, that it is a unique database and the same database that we all created way back in the day. I can speak to the accommodation that was given to this candidate for UTS. FERPA does not allow me to speak of any further regarding the candidate that was a student at the ADC. Is that fair? Okay. So the student has requested an accommodation after this 4th exam. So they did not request an accommodation prior to this exam. That's all I can say about that. I can tell you statistically, we've never had a candidate take more than 3 exams.
This is Sammy. Just to kind of circle back, what we could do is at the next meeting, I could work with UTS, or the new Sarenthia could work with we could work with UTS on, on drafting a memo, kind of what's the pass fail rates, what's how many people take the exam via accommodations, how was the test, is it psychometricians who did it? So kind of like some bullet points on the exam, and then we could do, HLO could do some back work to see if there's other exams available, which I don't know that there is. So and I can't see HLO going back to doing a practical exam, maybe a written, but definitely not a practical in the future.
Okay, Ron.
Okay, no, I think that's great. What I requested last year when these subjects, these 3 that are on here, the one we're on now and then 2 that are going to come up a little bit later, and were brought up just like this. And the second one about, pass or fail, or, the health division said, oh, we'll talk about that after the meeting. And I wasn't comfortable with that. And so with your expertise to put something together and do a little discovery on maybe supporting the candidate and making sure that this isn't a diversity inclusion thing or something weird, that you have a committee and invite other people, not just outside of the meeting or around the water cooler, but that I would like to be on that committee and at least another board member. And I think somebody from the educational department be on that committee. Because what concerns me is at the last Insurance Associating meeting, that I went around and talked to over a dozen people and I go, hey, have you heard what's happening at the board? No. Well, do you know they're trying to get rid of the college education avenue? No. Did you know that it's going to go to a pass and fail and that the curriculum?
What do you mean?
Where I'm going
Get
with
rid
that
of
is,
what?
okay, where I'm going with that is that nobody else in the insurance profession has had any input in, we're just doing it. And I think that it used to be back in the day that if a
What are we
subject came
doing,
in front
Ron?
of the
Ron, what are
board,
we doing?
We're doing-
Stop, let's give one point. Your first point, you said getting rid of the College of Education. What are you talking about right there?
Oh,
Hey, you know
it's the
what?
next, it's the
Let's-
next subject that's coming up.
Yeah,
It's getting
that's what
rid
I
of the degree program is coming up in a future page on this. What I'm saying
Okay.
is I asked the Insurance Association and asked them what they thought about it, and they knew nothing about it. So it used to be if something to this matter came up in front of the board, it would
I
already
just have
been
a quick
discussed with the
question. What
Insurance
does this have to
Association
do
and be
with-
sponsored,
I don't,
or at
yeah.
least.
Yeah,
What
Ron,
does
Yeah,
this
so-
have to do with this
Ron,
candidate?
excuse me,
We-
Chair, members of the
Yeah.
board.
Go ahead,
The
Robert.
topic is,
Thank you. Thank you for getting us
whether or
back on
not
topic.
to,
allow her to take.
allow a
time.
fifth attempt.
Sammy, can you state for the record what statute or rule states for this, or is there a policy statement that the board has adopted for test retakes?
It's a rule, so it's 331-410-0055. States if an applicant has not passed the written exam after the fourth attempt, the applicant must request permission from the Board of Dental Technology to take the written exam for the fifth time.
Has this ever happened in the history since in your 28 years of managing this board?
Not that I know of. Maybe Tina could weigh in, but
Mhm.
not that I'm aware of.
No, and I would say, yeah, it hasn't happened either.
And so there's no we might say that this rule is probably not well crafted as it does not lay out any sort of process or procedure or framework for the board to apply potentially additional training or education or that. Is that a fair statement?
This is Sammy. So for the practical exam, there is more detailed information.
Yeah.
The board intentionally didn't we didn't write anything extra about the written back when we did this, and I don't even know when we did this.
Yeah. So is there a precedent with other boards with HLO that have multiple failing written
Yes.
examinations that we might lean into to help? I don't know where to go. I mean,
Yes, so we have, mostly it's cosmetology, but we have people who fail 10, 16 times, a lot. And,
Okay.
we offer them accommodations. We have a study review process. You could have ADC do a review with her and give HLO confirmation if you want to do that. So, I mean, it's up to you to decide, or if you just let her test again.
So I have a question, Sammy. Is it possible to gain more information about exactly why this person failed 4 times without violating their privacy? Is there a way for us to collect additional information and distribute it to the members of the board without necessarily making it public information?
Maybe, probably,
I
yes.
totally agree with that, but I would like to have a list of people that are in that discovery that are members of this board and and more than just.
Excuse me, Ron, this is Bob. I'm sorry to cut you off. The information that we will provide is going to come out of our database.
Right, I have it up.
Or Sammy has it. Yeah, okay now. So yeah, it's not, when we talk about discovery, it's just gathering facts that are already out there. We're not making anything new. We're not making any new rules, anything new like that. We're just providing information. And I don't know what her scores were like. Maybe she was close to passing. And if I understood correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, she recently requested an accommodation.
Well, I
That's
think,
a fact.
Okay,
I think
so
I think
it
Todd
might,
said that correctly a minute ago.
Okay.
Todd said the same thing. Maybe the rule wasn't written quite as
Well-
clear as it could be, and maybe we rewrite the rule a little better. So that could be new stuff. Yeah,
so
thank
if we rewrite the rule, we would definitely bring a rules advisory committee together, and potentially a board member on it. Sammy's the expert with with writing rules. But my thought is, if she's passed 4 times, she's now requesting an accommodation. It might be worth giving her the accommodation, and in the meantime, we can provide the board the facts, or Sammy, if we want to provide the facts, what her passing scores were, or not passing, what her scores were as of late.
I'll just give you, so she's increased her passing score each time. And she landed on 66 the last time around. So is the passing score 70% or 70 or
Yes.
75? 70?
70.
So
Yeah.
she's almost there. And she has gotten better with each time.
So what's the accommodation? I'm not sure what that is.
That's probably going to be something that we don't discuss.
A reader could be someone who reads the exam
Yeah.
to her, or
So
she gets
there's only
extra
2
time.
accommodations. There's only, I can't speak specifically to this candidate, but I can tell you that the UTS can only offer 2 accommodations. One is additional time, and the other is a person to read the question for them.
Got it.
So with her, this is Bob. So with her moving upwards as far as attaining a passing score, and maybe realizing that she needs an accommodation, what say the board? Give her another opportunity?
I guess my question would be, okay, is there additional professional learning that takes place after a person becomes a licensed denturist? And if so, how much of that takes place on the job in the clinic? And if there is a genuine issue with this person's ability to continue to learn, is that going to affect the safety of the public?
She
Good
did
point.
pass the practical. So the hands-on, she passed.
This is the laws and rules we're talking about.
This is
Bob.
the written theory portion.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And yes, there is continuing education.
Yeah, there's a
Annual
minimum
speakings.
of 10 hours a year, doctor, and that all denturists have to comply with. But I think it's a interesting point that you're making. So yeah, Ron, go ahead.
Yeah, on the record, I totally support taking it the 5th time, 6th times, or as many times as necessary. I don't have a problem with that. I'm testing challenged anyway. It's just, you can ask me questions, but on a written, it's a tough for me to do. But I think where I want to apologize to the point to where I opened up and was trying not to bring up, I was just trying to educate some new board members. I totally don't understand. And I would have liked to have been the fly on that wall when the board, who put in the motion to take the test out of Oregon, who seconded it, what the discussion was, and why that test even left. And so that's really, it's not necessary to be brought up. It's 8, 10 years old. It's gone. This board approved it at that time. I just think there's just a hole in my heart that I don't understand why. But as it's written, I have highest respect for Todd and what he's trying to do. What a mission. I mean, you fell down and you jumped up so many times since you started this thing. You know.
Well, I will tell you, and I've said this publicly and on the record. If I could give the test back to Oregon, I'd do it in a heartbeat. It is literally been nothing but a lightning rod for for it's just not it's not my favorite thing to do. So
Yeah,
it's
and,
yes.
And being that time. So
Yeah.
as far as moving forward, I'm not doing. I just things that happen. So
Yeah.
thank you for letting me try to get my heart rate down a little bit.
So let's circle this back to this candidate 102-245. I'm going to recuse myself as there's a potential for financial gain through the universal testing services. Is there a motion that someone would like to make on this?
Chair, this is
Todd?
Bob. With the motion being to allow the applicant 102245 to take the written exam a fifth time.
May I ask a question before you go to motion?
Yeah.
To me, I guess we have to decide what's our interest in limiting the testing. And, you know, it opens up a question. Is the question, do we equate incompetency with the inability by the fourth time we're equating some sort of incompetency? That's a question. And you look at, okay, she's learned each time and improved each time she's taken it. That doesn't show incompetency to me. If you improve each time you take the exam, she's got a lot of investment. She's passed the practical. The practical is a different matter. It's a different sort of competency. And so if an applicant learns each time and improves each time, I'm not sure we have an interest in limiting exams. So that's my only point.
Thanks, Grant.
Yep. Thank you.
What's the purpose of a written? That sounds maybe a bit naive, but you know, why do we even have it? Why not just do a practical?
Well, I think this is Ron. I could have an input because I always do, but the written is on the didactic. A lot of it is let's use pathology for an instance. And it used to be in the day that we sat in the classroom and not only looked at slides, but we had discussions and you had peers all around you, and that's the way it was done. Back then, fact machines weren't even, they've just started, and they weren't even legal tender yet, you know, so faxes and emails and Zooms and all that, you know, weren't even invented yet. So we have a wonderful way of improving education and stuff. So with that said, let's just say the written, a lot of it, you go through the classroom and you take a pathology and you do an intraoral exam and you see something on there that you learned on a slide, and you prove that by passing a test saying that you can recognize. I don't know if slides are in the test, but I really assume they probably are. And with the school now, I know when we did the other pathway, it was taught by a dentist or a doctor or Betcher or T-Bear or somebody. And I think now Todd can correct me on that, but the part for the written, I think the classes now are taught by a naturopath, but still it's just the board approved that a while back. So that's what made me think of that a naturopath was accepted as to be able to teach oral pathology, the advanced oral. Okay.
No, I think that you're confusing the oral examination prior to the practical examination. That has to happen within 30 days. I think that there's 3 avenues and I may be wrong on that. Sammy can, I'll have to go back and look, but never mind. I didn't mean to bring Sammy into that. But back to Dr. Schwant's question about why it's there. One reason is it's always been there since the beginning of the formation of the profession. It specifically calls out a written examination. We have a policy statement that actually calls no, that's not true. It actually lists several subject areas to be included in the examination. But I mean, the reality is that best practices as far as education is going has moved away from written examination, has gone to OSCE examinations or situational examinations. But even that, there's some backlash in the educational world on this the objectivity or subjectivity of those examinations. So I don't have a great answer for you, Doctor.
Well,
So
okay,
that's
I'm just kind of listening and answering my own question as I'm thinking it through, but it seems to me that the written tests a person's ability to take in information, categorize and organize that information, and then retrieve it on demand in a cognitive fashion. So there's something that happens with the body of knowledge that a person has and learns through written word versus merely a situational practice that we call on all the time as clinicians. And so I guess as I see the value in the written, I guess my question is, yes, they've done better. 5 times is a lot. Is there something else happening here that, I mean, I want to see more denturists. Trust me, I want more denturists and more dental technicians. That's one of the reasons I'm really on this board, because I want to find out how we can get more of these folks into service of the public. But I think safety is also a primary
100%.
concern. And then there's that ability, that cognitive ability, that is a real thing. And if you're working on another human being, I feel for this individual. I also feel for the people that I work on. So there's two sides of that. I just don't know exactly. That's why I was asking for more information.
Mm-hmm.
How can we collect more information about this individual, learn more about their situation, and maybe help them become a part of the profession? But if there are ongoing accommodations that might be needed, maybe we ought to consider providing those as well. I don't know.
fair statement. Yeah.
Well, I think so. It's just things have changed so much, and the new career schools and trade schools now, and a lot of the stuff in the insurance program is so much hands-on, and it's just doing that is, I think, the practical weighs so much more than the written does, and for me, but the written does show a commitment. I mean, it's to become a licensed insurance and work for the public as safety as you can. You got to weed out the ones that just are trying to get in and the ones that really want to be there. And so testing is our only avenue of doing that. And
Well, the hard part is to speak to that, Ron, is after seeing over 100 graduates come through the American Dentures College, there are people that do extremely well in certain aspects of their education, and but as you specifically said, have severe test anxiety, that don't do well, or potentially dyslexia. There's things that doesn't necessarily prohibit them from becoming a licensed clinician. But to Doctor's point, we've got to protect the public. The ongoing ability to learn and progress as the profession progresses is also important. But I think it's a much bigger. This is a much bigger discussion that we're having specific to this one situation, and I don't think that we can solve all of that through this one candidate. I think that we have to take what we have now. If we want to punt this and gather more information, we can do that, or we give the person another shot, or we don't give another shot. I think we have like three options here. Am I stating that right?
Oh, I see.
So
Yes.
yeah. So if we are just dealing with candidate 102245, then What is the board's pleasure with this candidate?
I would like personally, I'd like to see more information. I think it's a good idea to have the barrier or the guardrail in there that, man, if you fail 4 times, that people got to start asking some questions. And I don't know what the answers to the questions are, but I really like seeing that guardrail, because that's the first thing that comes into my mind is, well, what's going on here? I don't know. Maybe this person could be just a wonderful contributor to the profession, and there's just something special happening. Or maybe this person really shouldn't be allowed to take the test again. I just need more info, but I don't want to be violating this person's, privacy in gathering that information. I think it's something that should be done by the board and not something in a public forum. I wouldn't want my 4 failures to be aired in the public forum.
Exactly.
You know?
Yep.
So this is Sammy. I'll have to check to see if it can be an executive session. We would need legal advice on that. What I'm not sure about is what information you would be looking for additionally that I haven't provided that would lend to you making a decision, because we are hindering her from working if we don't let her test. And I don't know, this is also probably a legal question, if you can just say, sorry, you can never test again, and she
Right.
just can't be an insurance. So
What
I mean,
about
there's
an
a few
interview?
things happening there.
What about an interview?
You would want to do an oral interview?
Absolutely. Why not?
Well, I think I agree with that, but I think if we go back to the written and the practical, the written has guidelines that if they fail a portion of the written or something, they have to go back and get another 1,000 hours and then come back and take it again.
You're talking about the
That's not there anymore.
practical. You're
That's
talking about the
practical.
practical.
I'm talking about the practical.
Yes. Okay.
I mean, it had guidelines that it's an unlimited time that you take it, I guess. But if you failed the practical, you would have those guide rails to say, this is where your weekend, you got to go back, get 1,000 hours in this area and take the practical again. I don't know if the written could be structured that way.
Tina, you got a question or a statement?
Yeah, I just wanted to say something. She just recently asked for accommodation. We have testing that happens in the office every single day. We have individuals in different boards fail. Some of them, it's pride and they don't want to ask for accommodation. So now she's asked for accommodation.
Yes.
Maybe.
That's factual. The first 4 attempts, there were no accommodations asked for or given. She's asked for the applicant has asked for an accommodation.
Okay. And maybe with the accommodation, she will pass this time. Or they will pass this time. I don't know who it is.
Mhm.
Sammy, did you have more? Hand still up.
You try putting it down.
There you go.
There
There
you
we
go.
go. So I guess there's several things happening. You could let her test. You could make her go back to her school and get additional hours, and the school provide us with, verification that she did that. You could say 100 hours, 300 hours, 400 hours. You could do whatever you wanted. You could make her come in for an oral exam. With that, you would need to write out questions for the oral exam. It would need to be something very specific.
Wait,
It
wait,
couldn't
wait,
just be a free for all.
Are we talking about an oral, like an interview? I think that
Yeah, I
the
think
doctor
so.
was talking about an interview, not an oral exam.
Well,
Or
I don't
guess
know.
as I'm
You have
understanding.
the authority for an oral exam. I don't know if you have again, another legal question, if you have the authority for an interview. Well, let me
Be
look.
worth looking into.
Oh, interesting.
I
Okay.
think it's simpler than that, in so much as they're asking to take it a 5th time. If if they don't pass it the 5th time, is it going to be back on the agenda to take it a 6th time? I think too, all of us probably agree that give her the eye of the tiger and let her keep trying, but it's not open-ended. It's just maybe that rule discussion may need to be done so this doesn't come up again.
Again, it's only come up
I
one time in
I
28
know it's only
years.
come up one time, but the number's high. It's 5. The people I talked to at the convention about this, a couple of them, Tad Brzezinski being one, were saying, "Oh, I thought it was 3 times." And everybody else said, "I didn't know there was a limit. I thought you take as many as you want." And so I don't think that the insurance profession not being involved in this discussion, which they should have before it got here, but that's my personal pain. But it's just it's a number, and we look at it as a number as written to take it a 5th time. That doesn't recluse us from never having this discussion again, unless it's the 5th time. So be it.
So this is Bob. So today we need to decide whether or not we're going to let her test. The board can also direct HLO to provide the board specific information.
Mhm.
So I looked into the law, and there is under your application requirements, you can meet other, it does say under 680-515-1 little d meets other requirements established by the office by rule. So you could, well, no, it has to be by rule if you want to do an interview. That's as far as I've gotten. Anyway, there's Heather.
Hi, Sammy. I've been following along the conversation, and that was what I was going to point out to you. You'd have to, it sounds like if you want to have further process, you'd have to be putting in that process in a different way. So you're not going to be able to put in another process for this particular candidate at this point in time in terms of an interview. Also, the written exam is something that's required by statute. Now, the board does have to approve the written exam, so but it is a requirement by statute, so that's there as well. And then another part of your discussion, you've been asking about executive session, and there isn't, based on my quick review, there's nothing specific to this particular situation, but there is more of a catch-all where if it is a document that is protected by law that's not specifically listed in the executive session exclusions. And so there might be something there. Again, it might be under FERPA, or it might be under some education records where this type of thing could be discussed in an executive session. If you wanted specific information on this candidate, then you could ask HLO to look at that. We could get some legal advice on whether there could be an executive session to discuss particulars about this candidate. But I believe as you've been going through your discussion, you have identified basically what you can do here is you could, grant her the opportunity to test. You know that she has asked for an accommodation, and that there is the possibility that that would be what she needs or he needs in order to pass. Tina, thank you for your insights in relation to this, what you're seeing with the application process. The other thing would be that you could deny that at this time, or you could, what was the other thing? You could wait and gather more information. And as Sammy pointed out, that is delaying the possibility of this individual working. It also creates a bigger point in time between when she's taken the test already and when she may take it again. And that also can play into how much information she has at the ready to be able to test. But it does sound like if you did want additional processes to be put in place, then you would probably want to look at that more globally and have that in rule, depending on what types of processes you're looking at. But it's kind of my feedback from what I've been hearing.
Heather?
Thank you. I appreciate your input. My question then would be, when you were talking about requesting more information, is there a particular limit on the type of information we can request?
From this particular candidate, or are you looking more
Correct.
globally? Because what
No,
I'm saying is that if you're
just this
going to want to
candidate.
change the process, you're probably going to want to put that in rule and be looking at
Not trying
that.
to change the process, just want to get more information about this particular candidate.
So it's going to depend on what type of information that you're going to want. It would probably need to be specific to the written examination, maybe perhaps the subjects that the individual is, whether there's any correlation to the subjects over the test time that the person has some deficits in, or that maybe there's questions that are particularly more difficult for this person or for candidates generally, that the test is there. So I think there's it's going to depend on the type of information that you want. But getting too far into, it's got to be, I would say, tied to the written test as to the types of things.
Okay, so to that, for example, please provide an explanation as to why the test scores are so low on the written exam, where the practical exam was passed with flying colors. Something along those lines. I mean, is that inappropriate to ask that question?
Well, I'm not sure.
Who would that question
Like,
be
would we
directed
ask it
to?
to the candidate?
Right,
To the
that the
candidate.
candidate
She
wouldn't
thinks.
be able to provide that
candidate.
information. The candidate may be able to provide some context. Maybe there was
Okay.
stuff going on. Maybe there was a death in the person's life, or maybe, something had happened where there could be providing context for that. But, and I don't know, maybe that individual knows why that person did or did not do well on the tests, but,
Well, I guess my thought would be, it happened 4 times. I'd hope that they would know.
Tina, did
Sorry,
you have
just
more
like-
information to say?
that seems
I don't
pretty
know.
obvious to
I
me.
can't
mean,
answer
it's
that
like,
question.
wow, what happened here? Why did it happen 4 times? Why did you fail 4 times? Can you tell us in your own words why you feel that you failed this test 4 times? Is that an unreasonable question to ask? That's the kind of information that I'm looking for. And I'm more interested in their perception of why they failed, because that guides me to helping them, either to say, oh, I get it now. Well, maybe we could make an accommodation in this way or that way. Or maybe we just say as a group, it might not be the right profession for you. I doubt that would be the case, but just to just say yes or no at this point seems relatively, we're not giving anybody any real good guidance. If we say yes,
I don't
then
know
we
that we
open-
can, I don't know that we can specifically do anything other than yes or no at this point, Doctor, because of the way that the rule is written, if I'm understanding Heather correctly. That if we're
Okay.
going to change the process, then we need to change the process, but we're kind of midstream. And so but I could be
Yeah.
wrong on that. Am I wrong on that? Or, and Tina's got her hand up. Tina, do you want to speak to this, or?
I'll be back in a sec, guys. I got to go see a patient.
Tina?
Okay.
Yeah.
Todd, the written examination, when you give a pass or fail to your candidate, does
Yeah.
it break down different parts of the exam that they need to study for? That's my first question.
Yes.
Okay. So another thing for consideration of this, because we do retakes for other boards quite often. She was close at a 66%, so she only missed it by a few questions.
Correct.
On the written, it was in February was the last time.
Yes.
It is now June. And if we're going to delay it for more of a breakdown, you're looking at, when do you guys meet again? October, November? I haven't looked to see when you meet again, so that's another lag in time
Yes.
for her to, retake this exam. That's just something I'm bringing up because we see it all the time for other boards. And if somebody is asked for accommodation after the 4th time of testing and they pass on the 5th time, they needed that accommodation, but didn't want to ask for it. So I'm just giving you an example of timelines here also, since she was so close the last time. Thank you.
Yeah. I don't know where to go. I don't know how to, as a chair, to manage this conversation any better or direct it to a conclusion. So I'd
You're
like to
not-
lean into the staff or legal counsel. Like what legally, based on the current OAR, are we allowed to do? Because because whatever we do, if we do anything other than allow her to take it a 5th time or not, then we're setting a new precedent
Yeah,
that
precedent,
that
that's
will
good.
then run forward until new rule is put into play. Is that a fair statement, Heather?
So I think under the, what, each applicant, you're probably going to want to look at each candidate on an individual basis. There's going to be, differences between them, but you also want to be treating everyone fairly and similarly. And so, to the extent that a different candidate would need, something else, that may be there. But in terms of your process, you would want to be treating them, fairly. Similarly.
That sounded like some legal speak that didn't answer my question. I'm just kidding. But
I'm looking up the OAR. Sammy, can you tell me the number?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's 331.
410-0055. And then while you're looking that up, Ron, did you have a statement you want to make or a question?
Well, I think on the surface here, I have no issues with a motion going forward soon that says, let this person take the test, and it's a one-hit wonder, and it still stands at 4 times only until we have a further review and a rule. But the review of that, I think, should be more in a committee statute that has at least 6 or 8 people on it, which is the health division, a few of this board, some insurance at large, maybe the educational department, just some people with some fresh oxygen to review the process. And hopefully there's not another test necessary, but by the time that comes to that, we can maybe unscramble this thing or make it look good.
In the meantime, what I'm hearing is we should be careful to not deny a person their ability to earn a living or to take this. And I'm not going to say anymore. So,
well, the candidate hasn't put anything on the table that they're confronting or collusions or anything of why they need to take it the 5th time. They're just asking to take it.
right.
What I
And
understand.
we're looking at a
Isn't
rule that
that-
says that we've got to say yes or no.
It isn't that refreshing. I mean, there could be a whole list of things that we have to look at and consider. So I think the honesty in the candidate saying, hey, I messed up again. Can I try it again? Versus, that I think there's some credibility should be given there.
Well, Chair,
Yes,
if I may,
please.
thanks. In that OAR, it looks like we can't require any additional training until after the 5th attempt.
That's correct.
And Heather's shaking it. She just confirmed that. And that's I don't even know that we can require that she come before the board. Like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's just kind of, It's just not clear. It's just, it's,
Oh, Todd, it's unprecedented. Say the word, it's unprecedented. That
well, I
word's
don't,
been
yeah,
used
and I don't,
every
what I
time.
don't want to do is I don't want to set a precedent that ends up, and to Sammy's point, it's one time in 28 years. But you know, I looking forward, you know, if this person fails it again, I'm not saying that they will, but there's a very real possibility we could be back here. And I don't know. I love having processes and procedures. You know me. That's how I live my life. So this having clear expectations or a clear rubric for someone to follow so that they know what the process is. I mean, Ron, this person didn't have a choice. They must request permission from this board to take it a fifth time. So it's not like they you know, it was like they were coming hat in hand. They had, if they want to become a licensed insurance, they had to come before the board. So I think that we've got a rule that needs clarification. I don't know that we can do it with this candidate. I think that we have a choice to either allow them to take it a fifth time or not, and face the consequences of not allowing them to take the examination a fifth time.
I
Well,
think you could,
go ahead,
sorry,
Heather.
Bob.
No,
Go
you're
ahead,
fine. Go
Bob.
ahead. I was just
I
gonna
was
say,
just-
I don't know if we can stop them from taking it the fifth time. They've put in the request. They've done what they needed to do, according to the rule, it looks like. So I don't know if we can stop them. Heather?
Yeah, I was going to add that if the board allows her to or him to take the test again, then if the person does fail, the board could say, you know, if you fail, then we would like you to come back with us to us with a written statement about why you think you failed, if that's what the board feels is important. And you could lay that out to that person at this point in time and kind of give what you would like to see. And that might be helpful so that you have some direction for next time. That might also help you. I'm sorry, what's that?
She's everywhere.
Heather Shepherd, I think you're unmuted.
Oh, sorry. The dog had an accident in the house.
So, but I would say that right now that the rule only says that she needs to ask for permission from the board. You have that she has an accommodation that she has sought and been granted. So that she has, maybe something will change with an accommodation. So you have that information. You also have the information that it's going to be a long time until your next board meeting, and that she we don't know her situation and whether she has a job or is needing to work. But you also know that if she doesn't take this exam, that she won't be able to be working in the profession until your next board meeting, or until you're going to be reviewing rules or whatever you think would be necessary to change the process that she could fall under. And you also know that under the rule, you can't require training at this point in time. You wouldn't be able to do that until next time. So I think you have at least that amount of clarity.
Okay, Grant, see your hand up.
Yeah, I think mostly it would be redundant from what you both just said, but I think we have certain rails we have to stay on here, and we've been off them for a while. And I think that we do have the, you know, the task of either saying yes or no here. And then the rest of this stuff is really for another time. I think we're going to have to iron out a little more detail.
Is that, am I hearing a motion from you?
Yep, you just did.
And that motion clearly states to do what?
A motion to allow her to have accommodation.
Is there a second?
So the motion would be to take the examination again, if
Yes,
that's correct.
correct.
Well, I would like, before we do that, I don't know, you know, this accommodation word is a little vague. Is the accommodation just taking the exam, or is the accommodation include something else?
The accommodation is different. The accommodation is something that a person is provided so that they can access the examination on an equal basis to someone else. So it's an accommodation for the examination. That's not something that we would grant. That's something that the testing entity would grant. But the examination is what's before the board, whether or not the board would agree to her taking the examination again, regardless of whether she has an accommodation or not but this particular person apparently does.
So am I
I'll second the
motioning
motion.
am I motioning that we give her additional opportunity to take the exam with accommodation? Is that what I'm saying? Oh,
Just,
okay. So
just to take
just
just to
exam.
take the examination.
Okay, thank you.
I second that.
Any further discussion?
Who seconded? I'm sorry, I missed it.
The Dr. Dr. Schwant, right?
Yeah, I'll second that motion.
Thank you.
Okay. Ron Ferris.
Yes,
Yea or
sir.
nay? Yea or nay?
Yay.
Grant Smith,
Yay.
Chris Chapman,
Yay.
Jennifer Ferguson,
Yay.
Bruce Schwant, Dr. Schwant.
Yay.
All right, motion carries. Thank you for that discussion. And it sounds like we're going to have further discussion on some of the points that Ron raised here shortly. So, Robert, I'm turning it back over to you.
Thank you. Chair, members of the board, the next item on the agenda are reports, and we're going to start with my report to the board. If you're following on your computer, I am looking at slide 11, which is the board membership recruitment. I wanted to point out to the board members, since we have new board members and board members that have been on for a year or better, that there are some required training, and the links are in this document on page 11 of what was attached and emailed to you. So the requirements.
Bob, a couple of those links don't work. So me and Derek will get together and resend that out.
Thank you for
Only because I tried
clarification.
it earlier.
Oh, okay. Thanks. I have one that's red and I don't remember if I tried it or if I accidentally clicked on it. But okay, so thanks, Sammy. So please, Chair and members of the board, take your required training. On page 12, I have your status as board members, and I'll start with Ron. And Ron is in a second term, which expires February 28 of 2026, and Ron cannot reappoint. Chris Chapman, also in a second term, and is serving until replaced, or is that a typo, Derek?
This is Chris. I think that looks correct.
Okay, so you're serving until replaced?
Yep.
Thank
correct.
you. And cannot reappoint. Todd is in a first term, which expired March of 2024, and can reappoint. And if you haven't done the paperwork or provide the information, you can get with Derek and he can give you a hand with that. Grant is in a second term, which expires September 22 of 2025 and cannot reappoint. Dr. Schwant, first term, expires October 4, 2026 and can reappoint. Jennifer Ferguson is first term, expires February 15, 2027 and also can reappoint. Moving down on my slides to slide 15, the number of licenses issued in fiscal year 2024, and for the new board members, we don't work on a typical 12-month calendar, January to December. Our fiscal calendars begin July 1 and end June 30 of the following year. And so in fiscal year 2024, we have issued 4 licenses. Licenses renewed. This is great news. A lot of them are online. And we've, in fiscal year 2024, renewed 88 licenses. Licenses by age and gender, we have a variety. We have, excuse me, we have some denturists that have been around in the age of 74 to 81, male. There's 9 of them, and then there's one that one female is 82 to 89. And seems like these the profession is getting more and more younger folks coming into the profession. Licensing trends on slide 18, the denturists with pathology endorsement, we're setting at an average of 110.2. And Ron.
A question on that slide, the denture, excuse me, trainee denture tech. What is that job description? I'm a little lost. I know what the denture is. I know what the temporary license is, pretty much. Denturist and denturist with oral path. I thought every denturist had oral path now, but it looks like there's a couple that still never did. But anyway, trainee denture tech. What category is that?
I can guess that they're
They're-
go ahead. Save
This
me.
is Tina. They're in training.
Okay, so we have one. There's only one, right? If I look at my
Average. Yeah. So
So
they're providing me
just-
averages. Go ahead.
That is not someone that's in school. That's because they're not, they don't register with the state. So I'm not sure, to Ron's question, is that someone that is doing a different pathway that's getting their training differently?
I would have to look because this
Okay.
is kind of confusing.
Can someone tell me what slide they're on? Because I do not see what you're talking about.
18.
Licensing trends. It's kind of,
Oh,
that-
yeah, that's
yeah, that's not,
it's not the best mechanism for looking at that.
yeah.
But we do have trainees.
Okay, I could see how that could be possible. Thank you. It's just somebody that's going through the piecework, lack of a better term,
Correct.
college pathways and going and piecing it together. They have identified themselves with the health division that I'm going after these. I'll let you know when I complete them, and that could be a trainee that maybe.
Correct.
No.
Oh, okay.
No, you're good.
Yes, that's correct. This is Tina.
Okay. No, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you for asking.
Okay.
Makes 100% sense. Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, and we do have these in rule, these licenses. So if, that may help you clarify too, Ron.
Okay.
If you want to take a look at those. And then in your financials continue to do very well. We had a beginning cash balance of 233,643. Revenues of 21,891, expenditures of 10,280, and operations of 11,612, with the remaining balance of 245,254. And those were as of April 24 of this year. So the board's sitting very well financially. And on slide 20 and 21, we move into the regulatory report, and there's Trampus Shuck back like he promised early on.
Hello, everybody. I'm back. So I'm just here to talk about this regulatory report. So the regulatory report is actually looking pretty good. The only cases that we have open are in this current biennium that we're in. The 2025 biennium started about a year ago in July, on July 1st. So since the beginning of that biennium, we've received 5 complaints. 1 is completely closed, and 4 are still open. is what you're seeing here on the report. You can see the top portion says open, the bottom portion says closed. I know that those seem like they're pretty self-explanatory words, but they probably need a little bit of explanation. Open means that it's somewhere in between receiving it and opening it, and either being reviewed and closed by myself or being reviewed and closed by the board. Or if the board has decided for some, to send out disciplinary action, the disciplinary action hasn't gone out yet. So somewhere in that long range is open. So these could be administrative, these could be currently being investigated, but once they get that point where they're either not going to have any kind of finding, or there is a finding and a notice has gone out, that's where they become closed. So you can see that of the 5, all 5 were services provided and turned in by, none of them were anonymous, and they were all either clients or client representative. So go ahead, Ron.
Ron has a question.
Same thing, just on definition. It says unlicensed denture tech. Is it unlicensed just a laboratory tech, or just general public, or not a denturist, obviously?
I would guess, I think that is the only code for unlicensed. So they're probably saying unlicensed denture technology. That tech probably stands for technology.
Yeah. I mean,
as per your board name, yeah.
You're either a licensed denturist or not. So I don't know that there's an unlicensed denturist. But
unlicensed denture technology, yeah, probably practicing unlicensed was the, which actually brings into question the complaint type. It says they're all services provided. So, it could be that we had a services provide, somebody complained about services, but it turned out when we looked them up, they were unlicensed. So there might be a little dispute between those two, the complaint type and the unlicensed. But that to me would indicate that is just somebody who's working unlicensed. That could also mean inactive or, expired or something too. It'd be pretty unusual to just have a completely unlicensed person.
Thank you.
Working.
Good luck with that. I hope you take care of it before we see it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, some certain violations have a civil penalty that's attached to them. That the board has already said this is the civil penalty for this and this is a civil penalty for that. If it has a set civil penalty, typically we don't bring it to the board. But if there is no set civil penalty, then tag you're it. So.
Okay. Thank you.
That's how that works. Does anybody have any other questions about this? Or the regulatory process in general, or how complaints happen? Or I know there's a couple of new board members. If they have questions about, be happy to answer any kind of regulatory questions that I can help with.
Yeah, so I do have a question. How can we get the detail of these complaints?
So the detail of the complaints, typically, like I was saying, if there's something that, if they were found, if we have a complaint that actually goes through the process of investigation and there are alleged violations, then those will typically come to the board and you'll get a full reckoning of the case. So you'll see the report, you would have access to the records and things like that. If they don't have any findings to them, then they and they're very clear that there's no findings, they typically aren't going to come to the board specifically.
Okay.
Yes, but if there was if it was iffy, like, well, we're not sure about this. This potentially is a violation. Then we would bring that to the board to decide whether it was closed, should be closed with no violations or with violations. We would give you that say as well in that.
So based on the fact that we don't see any of those reports, we could safely conclude that these are unfounded complaints.
Well, these, the one that closed out, yeah, that would have been unfounded that you didn't see it. But the 4 that are open are still pending, so we don't know what the outcome of those will be until until they've been fully gone through the investigative process, and then the administrative, me looking at them and kind of that administrative process. Then we would say, okay, yes, this is something that potentially has violations, or we definitely think has violations, and we're going to bring it to the board to verify that, to look at all the details, and then to come up with what, if you do find violations, what it is we should give us advice on what we should do moving forward with that.
Real quick, is there a time frame on that?
It just depends. Some of these cases take longer than others, just depending on the workload of the investigator, how cooperative everybody is, just how kind of timing goes. They can take a little bit of time to move through the process. And then if we've got to wait for a board meeting, I think this board meets twice a year. So,
Right.
that can, if we happen to close a case tomorrow, it could have to wait. If it's something that's really pending or really we feel is something that really needs to have a resolve quickly, we might call for a special meeting, ask for a special meeting, regulatory meeting. But
Thank you.
Ron, I just like to chime in for a second that I think as a profession, as an insurance profession for the last 30, almost 40 years, it's always been kind of a standard little humor that 80% of the denturists or the dentist board, 80% of their complaints are removable. Well, denturists, 100% of our complaints are removable, And with that said, our track record as denturists and having one or two, cases a year or a quarter through the health division and the process, I think for you new guys coming in, I think we have the right to really brag about that. Our policing aspects and what we've done has been really successful, and our profession really is doing pretty good when it comes to that part. Personally, that's my view. So.
And I think that, I'm not sure who asked me this question, but the question was details about these complaints. I could give you a general sense of what most of these complaints that are services are, and that is fit. So they often come down to whether or not the person who received the dentures feels that they didn't fit properly. That's probably the number one services complaint for denturists. Almost probably most, if not close to all, are related to fit.
Interesting. Thank you.
Any other questions for Trampus? Okay, thanks everybody. Thank you, Trampus.
Yeah.
Next up is the policy report. Sammy.
Hi, this is Sammy. I bring to you today House Bill 4011, which did not pass, but I bring it to you because this is what came up before the legislature in 2023 and again in 2024. So the likeliness of it coming up in 2020, it wouldn't surprise me if it came up in 2025. The original text of the bill worried me that denturists would have been lumped into this, having to be a dental lab, being licensed as a dental lab, and then also requiring at least one dental lab tech be work in that space. So I worked with legislative counsel. Yeah, I think so. To get a carve out so that denturists are not included in the bill. So as long as they go with the A engrossed of 411, it should be fine. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. That could come up again, and I'll be reporting on it as we go through a session in 2025.
I want to say thanks to both you and Robert for keeping us abreast on that and for your work on doing that. So it's appreciated.
Our pleasure, as always.
I do. Yeah, I copy that. Thank you.
And I think that's all I have.
All right, moving on to the next one, public interested parties feedback. Is that where we're, any public members on? All right, so moving on to other board business, 2-year degree discussion. Is there any documentation related to this, or is this a blanket discussion we're having, or not sure how to manage this?
So I'll just give you a little overview. I had received an email from Ron. So his question was, the committee needs to discuss removing the 2-year degree education from approved requirements and getting a dentures license. And the committee needs to discuss the requested pass-fail grading system and if it meets curriculum requirements. So I can answer the first question. There has been no discussion, to my knowledge, to change what's in the law to remove that 2-year degree. It just hasn't happened. So, and then I'll let Ron take it away. I asked him clarifying questions, but he never responded.
Oh, no, I didn't, it's kind of like we talked to it, outside of the meeting, and I didn't want to go there. So I didn't respond. Mine was just making sure that these items were brought up, not by me, but when they were said that they wanted to be discussed outside of the meeting, I went, no, I'd like it to be on the agenda and be discussed at the meeting. You said they weren't discussed, but it was discussed, and I think there was a consensus immediately that we would have to open up the statutes to remove a 2-year degree.
Yes, that's what I meant. There's been no passed to the legislative group. I have not heard that has happened.
Good, because I don't think it needs to go there for that reason alone. But and so it not being removed, it's just
As
a credit
a point of
requirement.
information on that,
Pardon?
I'd like to make just a point of information on the pathways to licensure. Last year, the state of Washington has passed a rule so that there is no longer straight license reciprocity with the state of Washington. They only recognize accredited schools and not a piecemeal pathway for licensure. So if you have a piecemeal pathway to license here in Oregon, and actually Oregon is the only state that allows that pathway to licensure. So point of information.
The only state that allows the 2-year degree accreditation pathway.
No, every other state requires a minimum of a 2-year associate's degree or equivalent, and several states require that 2-year degree be from an accredited institution.
Okay, and so the accredited institution is to be accredited by a body that accredits.
U.S. Department of Education recognized accrediting body. That's the way that Idaho states it, Montana states it, and Idaho, Montana, and Arizona.
Okay, and so with that, I'm looking at, this goes back to December 2nd, 2020, to the Board of Denture Technology from Cynthia Murphy, qualification analyst. But this is a copy of the board's discussion of the recommendation that the equivalent to an associate degree program in denture technology or the equivalent informal post-secondary education as adopted by the Board of Denture Technology. And it states that Bates Technical College's courses do not meet minimum credit requirements, including in this talks that National Alberta Institute of Technology courses do not meet the minimum credit requirements, and it talks about anatomy and physiology. and dental histology, etc. And it states that the board says George Brown College courses do not meet the curriculum course requirements included. And then the paragraph, it says only the previously approved program, the American Insurance College, currently meets the minimum credit requirements in all specific areas. And so I think that kind of backs up in some way the request to get rid of all these other colleges if they don't meet any of the requirements. I don't think we have to open the statutes to do that. It talks about a comparison chart, but I didn't get the comparison chart. I don't know. I don't know where I'm exactly going with this. Maybe it's the accreditation body that accredits. What's the accreditation body that accredits the American Insurance College? It is
The
same
DEAC.
accreditation. It's accredited by a degree authorizing accreditation, a bricks and mortar GPA, you know, a GPA, which is a minimum level grade to go to the next level, like a C or better.
So there's
But
there's
that's
two
different
there's
stuff.
two things we're talking about here, Ron. So it's speaking specifically to the American Dentures College. The American Dentures College is authorized by the Oregon Department of Education's Office for Degree Authorization to operate and to educate students in Oregon. Additionally, we are accredited by the U.S. Department of Education recognized Distance Education Accrediting Council, the DEAC, and have been for the last 6 or 7 years now. So
Okay.
that's the authorizing body and the accrediting body. So the people that regulate us here in this state where our base of operations are, and then the accrediting body. Additionally, we do have registered status with Health Accreditation Canada as well. So we're going through the accreditation process up there as well. So from my understanding, some of the reason that the Health Licensing Office has not or does not recognize other institutions has nothing to do with whether or not they're teaching the right stuff. It's whether or not they've submitted proper documentation to be recognized, and that can be clarified by staff. So when
Chair.
we're asked to submit our curriculum, our learning objectives, a map of how our competencies meet those minimum competencies that Oregon has adopted, we provide that.
Chair, this is Bob. Tina has her hand up and has for a minute now.
Sorry, I'm sorry, Tina. Yeah, Tina's the expert on this. So
Ron, it doesn't mean that all those colleges like Bates or George Brown or any of those are not able to come through this way. They still are. Each transcript is evaluated. If an individual is coming from college that they don't meet all the requirements of Oregon's curriculum, then we review those, and then they are sent. If they need additional training, then they're sent for additional training. We do accept Washington under the current requirements for the practical and the written. But since Cynthia is no longer here, whoever takes her place will be the one to finish up Bates. It was not completely done yet. So that too will be evaluated, and we will go from there. But it doesn't mean that none of them are acceptable. It just means that they each have to be evaluated. Is that more clear for you?
Yeah, it's fine. And I think it's just on the plate for all the new board members and stuff, of kind of bring them up to speed that there was a lot of changes a few years ago. And I'm just reading it word for word that it says it does not meet the credit requirement, does not meet the
Right.
requirement. So I could be reading it selfishly.
They're under evaluation. So it's just that they need to submit, they need to submit all the proper documentation at that time that Cynthia was requesting. So Soon as somebody fills that position, then they can go from there as far as evaluating the schools.
Okay. So that
Okay.
under evaluation is since the date of this, December 2020, almost 4 years ago. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Chair, this is
So
Bob.
does that hit on the 2-year degree discussion, Ron, and then this pass or fail grading system? What is something you wanted to share on that?
Well, it's just bring it up to the board because a couple of the new members weren't on the board at the time that these were brought up, and they weren't brought up by me, but I think that just the pass or fail grading system, there again, these two items I brought up at the insurance convention a couple months ago with all the people and the people I talked to, they go, "No, that sounds weird. The only pass and fail I heard of was PE or home ec or something," and I go, "Well, you guys must have discussed this before it was presented to the board." And so
What are we talking about? What
talking
pass or
about-
fail thing?
the pass or fail, I don't understand how you can get an accredited 2-year degree program on a pass or fail, not a GPA minimum requirement. I'm
If
asking
you're
for
referring to the American
clarification.
Denturist College, there is no pass or fail courses. There isn't a single course within our curriculum that is taken, our coursework that is pass or fail. Every single course is graded within that. There's a transcript that's generated. It has a weighted grade point average, and you have to pass with a minimum of a C to pass the school. So
Okay, that sounds great. I'm just saying, a couple months ago, a few boards ago, or meetings, it was brought up, and I think by you, that says I wanted to talk about the pass or fail grading system. And when the health division chimed in and says, we'll talk about that after the meeting, I'm curious why that was even brought up. It sounds like you got a great thing going and don't change it. So I don't, who brought up the pass or fail grading system?
I can answer some of this only because
Okay.
I was helping Cerinthia. So if I remember correctly, it was at the request of HLO that the grade that we obtain from UTS be pass or fail. Originally, I believe they wanted to give us the number score, but we requested the pass fail. And that was for a number of reasons. It's complex. There's different, domains within the exam, especially for the practical. So, and if you were to read the documentation that UTS gives, it says pass fail is your grade, but we recommend that the number, the percent passing. So if you were to read that document, so that was a request from HLO.
okay.
Okay,
Specifically, and this is somewhat germane as to, so we require, we don't pass or fail anyone at the Universal Testing Services. We provide regulatory bodies with a composite score that states how the overall score that the candidate did. And it's up to the regulatory body to choose what a passing score is. Oregon has chosen 70%. Idaho is 80%. So and they're working on that now from a regulatory standpoint, how to change that. But all that to be said, if that's what this discussion was about, so we now report specifically to Oregon a pass if it's above 70%, or a fail if it's 69.9 or lower. But we also dual report on most candidates that to Washington, so that because Washington has not asked for that report, so we report the composite score, not broken down by area, but the overall score.
Okay, and thank you. That was over explained, but it was necessary because I viewed it when I heard it months ago, pass or fail grading system. It wasn't zeroed in on the final exam score, it was an education system, you see? And so you
Got it.
see where I, made that mistake, because the American Insurance College, in their resources and their program, they speak of transferable credits. And I'm not aware of any transferable credits from the American Insurance College, as far as if you went to Portland State or PCC and you paid for a term and you got a grade from that term, and then you have those transferable credits in case you didn't want to be an insurance, you could go to pre-med and pharmacy school or go do something else. And I just want to, help everybody that when the American Insurance College says transferable credits, that pass or fail, they could take those credits and go on to something else.
I will tell you, Ron, in the academic world, in the world of universities and colleges, credits are transferable, but it's subject to the accommodating college or university.
Yeah.
They are the ones that determine who they accept credits from. That's how that works. So,
and that's also at like the private career school level. I mean, not just college and universities. I just need just some clarification. Are you, Ron, are you using pass fail score and credits interchangeably? Because pass fail scores on a test and the credits are in the education, getting education. So want to make sure I understand correctly. Yes,
I did confuse those in so much as I was thinking it was in the educational side and not the testing. So
okay.
Yeah, I was one-sided on that, and I stand corrected. Yeah.
Okay, Tina, do you have your hand up still? Is that from before
Yeah.
or a new one? Okay.
Yes. I just wanted to touch on point of this. Thank you, Todd, for making it much easier for my staff to determine whether somebody passed or failed, because that's why this got brought up, is because of the percentages that were sent to us, and we were unclear if certain parts of the practical were passed or failed, and that's why this subject got brought up. So thank you, Todd, for making sure that that's all done properly when it comes to us.
Yep.
Okay.
Any other discussion, Ron, or anyone else?
No, I don't. I'm just aware of like Bates and Ken Kais, when we were at that last meeting up there, he had made a request for some transfers for a student that went from American Insurance College up to Bates and was hoping to get some transfer credits so they didn't have to pay and retake some classes, but it wasn't available and they were sad about that. But I wasn't in on that meeting. Ken Kais just told me about it at one of the health division board meetings when we were there. And so that's all I have to go on that. And I was just hoping for, but leaving it up to the institution answers my question, and it makes a lot of sense. So as long as you're providing all that, I think that's wonderful. Keep doing the same. I'm
okay.
done.
All right, Bob, where do we go from here?
Next item on the agenda is executive session, and you should have a script for taking us into executive session.
Okay. Oh, Lord. Here it is. Yes. Wait. Give me just a second here. I do have a script.
I hope so. I'm
Executive
going through my paperwork and I'm not
session.
seeing. Yeah, there you go.
Executive session scripts. I got it right here. Sorry. Thank you, Carrie. So we do what I'm hearing is we need to go into executive session. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
It's on the agenda.
Okay.
For legal advice.
All right. The Board of Denture Technology will now meet in executive session pursuant to ORS 192.660 subsection 2 subsection F and ORS 192.355 subsection 9 subsection A and ORS 40.225 for the purpose of considering information exempt from public disclosure at 11:05 a.m. on June 3rd, 2024. Representatives of the news media shall be allowed to attend the executive session. The public will now be moved into a separate breakout room for the duration of the executive session. Please continue to keep your phone muted and cameras off. Are there any representatives of the news media on MS Teams?
I don't see any, Chair.
Okay. Recognizing there's no news media in attendance, the public will be moved into a separate breakout room for the duration of the executive session. We will return to open session before taking any final action or making any final decisions. It is estimated the board will return to public session at 11:15 a.m. Please be aware that it's possible the board's executive session may last longer than that time, 11:15 a.m. If the public has any questions about whether the board is still in executive session, then the public can contact Carrie Edwards at carrie.edwards@oha.oregon.gov. We are now in executive session.